The story of Beowulf. Now we have heard, by inquiry, of the glory of the kings of the people, they of the spear Danes, how the Athelings were doing deeds of courage. Full often, Sild, the son of Scef, with troops of warriors, withheld the drinking stools from many a tribe. This earl caused terror, when at first he was found, in a miserable case. Afterwards he gave help when he grew up under the Walken, and worshipfully he flourished, until all his neighbors over the sea gave him obedience, and yielded him tribute. He was a good king. In after time there was born to him a son in the court, whom God sent thither as a savior of the people. He saw the dire distress that they formerly suffered, when for a long while they were without a prince. Then it was that the Word of life, the wielder of glory, gave to him glory. Famous was Beowulf. Far and wide spread his fame. Ere was he of Scyld, in the land of the Danes. Thus should a young man be doing good deeds, with rich gifts to the friends of his father, so that in later days, when war shall come upon them, boon companions may stand at his side, helping their liege lord. For in all nations, by praiseworthy deeds, shall a man be thriving. At the fated hour, Scyld passed away, very vigorous in spirit, to the keeping of his lord. Then his pleasant companions carried him down to the ocean flood, as he himself had bidden them, whilst the friend of the Scyldings was wielding words, he who, as the dear lord of the land, had ruled it a long time. And there, in the haven, stood the ship, with rings at the prow, icy and eager for the journey, the ferry of the Athlin. And they laid down their dear lord, the giver of rings, the famous man, on the bosom of the ship, close to the mast, where were heaps of treasures, armor trappings that had been brought from far ways. Never heard I of a comelier ship, decked out with battle weapons, and weeds of war, with swords and murnies. In his bosom they lay many a treasure when he was going on a far journey into the power of the sea. Nor did they provide for him less of booty and national treasures than they had done, who at the first had sent him forth, all alone o'er the waves, when he was but a child. Then, moreover, they set a golden standard high o'er his head, and let the sea take him, and gave all to the man of the sea. Full sad were their minds, and all sorrowing were they. No man can say soothly, no, not any hall rower, nor hero under heaven who took in that lading. Moreover, the Danish Beowulf, the dear king of his people, was a long time renowned amongst the folk in the cities. His father, the prince, had gone a-faring elsewhere from this world. And was there born to him a son, the high Healfdene, and while he lived, he was wooing the happy Danish people, and war-fierce and ancient was he. 4 children were born to him. Hroðgar, the leader of troops, and Hrothgar, and Helgar the Good. And I heard that Queen Elon, wife of Angantyr, was his daughter, and she became the beloved comrade of the Swede. Then to Hrothgar was granted good speed in warfare and honor in fighting, so that his loyal subjects eagerly obeyed him, until the youths grew doughty, a very great band of warriors. Then it burned in his mind that he would bid men be building a palace, a greater mead hall than the children of men ever had heard of, and that he would therein distribute to young and to old, as God gave him power, all the wealth that he had to set. Then I heard far and wide how he gave commandment to many a people throughout all the world, this work to be doing, and to deck out the folkstead. In due time it happened that soon among men this greatest of halls was now already. And heart he called it, whose word had great wielding. He broke not his promise, but gave to them rings and treasures at the banquet. The hall towered on high, and the gables were wide between the horns, and awaited the surging of the loathsome flames. Not long time should pass ere hatred was awakened after the battle slaughter, twixt father-in-law and son-in-law. Then it was that the powerful sprite who abode in darkness scarce could brook for a while, that daily he heard loud joy in the hall. There was sound of harping and the clear song of the bard. He who knew, it was telling of the beginning of mankind. And he said that the Almighty created the world and the bright fields surrounded by water. And exulting, he set the sun and the moon as lamps to shine upon the earth dwellers, and adorned the world with branches and leaves. And life he was giving to every kind of living creature. So noble man lived in joy, and were all blessed till one began to do evil, a devil from hell. And this grim spirit was called Grendel. And he was a march stepper who ruled on the moorlands, the fens, and the stronghold. For a while he kept guard, this unhappy creature, over the land of the race of monsters, since the Creator had proscribed him. On the race of Cain the eternal Lord brought death as vengeance when he slew Abel. Nor did he find joy in the feud, but God, for the crime, drove him far hence. Thus it was that evil things came to their birth, giants and elves and monsters of the deep, likewise those giants who for a long while were striving with God himself. And well he requited them. Then he went visiting the high house after nightfall to see how the Ring Danes were holding it. And he found there a band of athelings asleep after feasting, and by they knew not sorrow or the misery of men. The grim and greedy wight of destruction, all fierce and furious, was soon ready for his task, and laid hold of 30 thanes, all as they lay sleeping. And away he wended, faring homeward, and exulting in the booty, to revisit his dwellings filled full of slaughter. At the dawn of day, the warcraft of Grendel were seen by men. Then after his feeding, they set up a weeping, great noise in the morning. The glorious Lord, the very good Atheling, sat all unblithely, and suffered great pain, and endured sorrow for his thanes, when they saw the track of the Lowbry one, the cursed sprite. That struggle was too strong, loathsome, and long. And after but one night, no longer time was it, he did them more murder bail, and recked not a whit the feud and the crime. Too quick was he therein. Then he who had sought elsewhere more at large, a resting place, a bed after bower, was easily found when he was shown, and told most truly, by the token so clear, the hate of the hell vain. He went away farther and faster, he who would escape the fiend. So he ruled and strove against right, he alone against all of them, until the best of houses stood quite idle. And a great while it was the friend of the Danes suffered distress and sorrows that were great the time of 12 winters. The terrible monster, a dark death shadow, was pursuing the youth and the warriors, and he fettered and ensnared them, and ever was holding, night after night, the misty moorlands. And then know not ever whither workers of hell runes wander to and fro. Thus the foe of mankind, the terrible and lonesome traveler, often he did them even greater despite. He took up his dwelling in the treasure-decked hall of heart in the dark night, nor could he come near the throne, the treasure of God, nor did he know his love. And great was the evil to the friend of the Danes, and breakings of heart. Many a strong one sat in council, and much they discussed what was best for stout-hearted men to do against the fearful terror. And sometimes they went bowing at their heathen shrines and offered sacrifices, and with many words pleaded that the devil himself would give them his help against this menace to the nation. For such was their custom, the hope of the heathen. And ever of hell they thought in their hearts. The Creator they knew not, the judge of all deeds, nor knew they the Lord God, nor could they worship the protector of the heavens, the wielder of glory. Woe be to that man who shall shove down a soul through hurtful malice into the bosom of the fire, and who hopes for no help nor for any change. Yea, shall it be with that one who after his death day shall seek the Lord and desire protection in the embrace of the Father. So Beowulf, son of Healfdene, ever was brooding over this time care, nor could the brave hero avert woe. That conflict was too strong, loathsome, and long, that terrible and dire distress, the greatest of night bales which came to the people. Then the Thane of Hygelac, the good man of the Geats, heard from home of the deeds of Grendel. And on the day of this life, he was the strongest of all men in the world. Noble was he, and powerful. He bade a fair ship be made, and said that he would be seeking the War King, the famous prince, over the Swan Path, and that he needed men. And the proud churls little blamed him for that journey, though dear he was to them. They urged on the valiant man, and marked the omen. The good man of the Geats had chosen champions of those who were keenest, and sought out the ship. And one, a sea-crafty man, pointed to the landmarks. Time passed by. The ship was on the waves, the boat under the cliff, and the warriors all readily went up to the stern. And the currents were swirling with sea and sand. The men were carrying on to the naked deck bright ornaments and splendid war armor. Then they crossed the remaining portion of the sea. The Geats went up quickly onto the shore and anchored the ship. War shirts and war beads were rattling. And they gave God thanks for their easy crossing of the waves. Then the word of the Swedes, who kept guard over the sea cliffs, saw them carry down the gangways the bright shields and armor, all ready. And full curious thought tortured him as to who these men were. He, the Thane of Hrothgar, rode down to the beach on his charger, and powerfully brandished the spear in his hand, and took counsel with them. Who are ye, armor-bearers, protected by Byrnes, who come here, thus bringing the high vessel over the sea, and the ranged ship over the ocean? I am he that sits at the end of the land, and keeps sea-guard, so that no one more loathsome may scathe with ship army the land of the Danes. Never have shield-bearers begun to come here more openly, yet ye seem not to know the password of warriors, the compact of kinsmen. Nor ever have I seen a greater earl upon earth than one of your band, a warrior in armor, and except his face belie him, he that is thus weapon bedecked is no hall-man, but a peerless one to see. Now must I know your lineage before you go farther with your false spies in the land of the Danes. My father was well known to the folk. A noble prince was called Ecthio, and he bided many winters, ere, as an old man, he set out on his journeys away from the dwelling places. And well nigh every counselor throughout all the world remembered him well. We, through bold thinking, have come to seek thy Lord, the son of Healbin, the protector of the people. Vouchsafe to us good guidance. We have a great business with the Lord of the Danes, who is far famed. Nor of this shall aught be secret, as I am hoping. Well, thou knowest, if 'tis true as we heard say, that among the Danes some secret evil doer, I know not what scather, by terror doth work unheard of hostility, humiliation, and death. I can see that this band of warriors will be very welcome to the Lord of the Danes. Go ye forth, therefore, bear weapons and armor, as I will direct you. And I will command my thanes to hold against every foe your ship in honor, new tart as it is, and dry on the sands, until it shall carry the dearly loved man, that ship with the twisted prow to the land of the Geats. To each of the well-doers shall it be given to escape scot-free out of the battle rush. Then they went forth, carrying their weapons. And there the ship rested, fastened by a rope, the wide bosomed vessel secured by its anchor. The boar held life ward, bright and battle hard and adorned with gold, over the neck guard of the handsome Beowulf. There was snorting of the warlike minded, whilst men were hastening, as they marched on together, till they caught sight of the splendid place, decked out in gold. And it was the most famous of palaces under the heavens, of the earth dwellers, where the ruler was biding. Its glory shone over many lands. Then the dear one in battle showed him the bright house, where were the brave ones, that they might straightway make their way towards it. Then one of the warriors turned his horse round, and spake this word: Time it is for me to go. May the Almighty Father hold you in favor, and keep you in safety in all your journeyings. I will go to the sea-coast to keep my watch against the fierce troops. The way was paved with many colored stones, and by it they knew the paths they should take. The coat of mail shone brightly, which was firmly hand-locked. Bright iron rings sang in the armor as they came on their way, in their warlike trappings, at the first to the great hall. Then the sea-weary men set down their broad shields, their shields that were wondrous hard, gainst the wall of the great house, and bowed toward the bench. And burnies were rattling, the war weapons of men. And the spears were standing in a row together, the weapons of the seamen, and the spear gray above. And the troop of armed men was made glorious with weapons. Then the proud chieftain asked the warriors of their kindred, "From whence are you bringing such gold-plated shields, gray sarks and helmets with visors, and such a heap of spears?" "I am the servant and messenger of Hrothgar. Never saw I so many men prouder." "I trow it was for pride and not at all for banishment, but for greatness of mind that Hrothgar ye are seeking." Then answered the brave man, the chief of the Geats, spake those words, hard under helmet, "Beowulf is my name." I will say fully, "This is my errand to the son of Healfdene, the famous chieftain, unto thy lord and master, if he will grant us that we may salute him who is so good. His courage is known to all, his valor and wisdom. That brave man then went and stood before the shoulders of the Lord of the Danes. Today, well, he knew the custom of the doughty ones. Wulfgar then spoke to his lord and friend. "Here are come faring from a far country, over the wide sea, a people of the Geats, and the eldest, the warriors, called Beowulf. And they're asking that they may exchange words with thee, my lord." But Ladman Hrothgar do not refuse to be talking with them. For worthy they seem all in their war weeds, in the judgment of earls. At least he is a daring prince, who hither hath led this band of warriors. Then spake Hrothgar, the protector of the Danes, "Well, I knew him when he was a child, and his old father was called Ecgtheow." And the holy God hath sent him for favor to us, rest Danes. And of this I have hope, gainst the terror of Grendel. I shall offer the good man gifts for his daring. Now make thou haste, and command the band of warrior kinsmen into the presence." "Bid them welcome to the people of the Danes." Then went Wulfgar even to the hall door, and spake these words, "My liege lord, the prince of the East Danes, commands me to say that he knows your lineage. And ye, who are bold of purpose, are welcome hither over the sea waves." Now, may you go in your war weeds, under your visored helmets, to see Hrothgar. Let your swords stay behind here, the wood and the slaughter shafts and the issue of words. Then the prince rose up, and about him was many a warrior, a glorious band of thanes. And some bided there, and held the battle garments, as the brave man commanded. And they hastened together under the roof of Hrothgar as the man directed them. The stout-hearted man went forward, hard under helmet, till he stood by the dais. Then Beowulf spake and the byrnie shone on him, the coat of mail, sewn by the cunning of the smith. O Hrothgar, all hail! I am the kinsman and comrade of Hygelac. Many marvels I have set on foot in the days of my youth. The affair of Grendel was made known to me in my native land. Seafarers told how this best of all palaces stared idle and useless to warriors. After evening light came down under the brightness of heaven, then my people persuaded me, the best and the proudest of all my earls, O my lord Hrothgar, that I should seek thee, for they well knew my main strength. And now all alone I shall settle the affair of Grendel, the deadly monster, the cruel giant. And one rule will I be asking. O Prince of the Bright Danes, thou Lord of the Scyldings, protector of warriors and friend of the folk, that thou wilt not refuse, since so far I am come, that I and my troop of earls, this crowd of brave men, I have heard say also that the monster, because of his rashness, recks not of weapons. And if Hygelac the Blithe-minded will be my liege lord, I will forego to carry to the battle a sword, or broad shield, all yellow, but I will engage by my hand grip with the enemy, and strive for life, foe with foe. And he whom death taketh shall believe in the doom of the Lord. And I doubt not he will fearlessly consume the people of the Geats, if he may prevail in the war hall, as he has often done with the strong men of the Danes. And thou shalt not need to hide my head if death take me, for he will seize me all blood-stained, and will bury the slaughter all bloody, and will think to taste and devour me alone, and without any sorrow, and will stain the glens and the moorland. And thou needest not to sorrow longer over the food of my body. And if battle take me, send to Hygelac this best of coats of mail, the noblest of garments. It is the heirloom of Hrethel, the work of Wieland, and let weird go as it will. Hrothgar gave answer, the protector of the Danes. O my friend Beowulf, now thou hast sought us for defense and for favor. Thy father fought in the greatest of feuds. He was bandsman to Heathelef amongst the Wilthings, when for battle terror the king of the Geats could not hold him. Thence he sought the folk of the South Danes over the welter of waves. Then first was I ruling the Danish folk, and in my youthful days possessed the costly jewels, the treasure city of heroes. Then Haregar was dead, my elder brother not living was he, the child of Hildane. He was a better man than I was. Then a payment of money settled the matter. I sent to the Wilthings ancient presents over the sea ridges, and he swore to me oaths. And it is to me great sorrow in my heart to tell any man what Grendel hath done in heart through his malice of humiliation and sudden horror. My whole troop has grown less, the crowd of my thanes. Weird has swept them towards the terror of Grendel. But easily may the good God restrain the deeds of the foolish scather. And drunken with beer, the warriors full often boasted o'er the ale cup that they would bide in the beer hall, the battle of Grendel, with the terror of swords. Then was the mead hall, all blood-stained in the morning, when dawn came shining, and all the benches were wet with gore, the hall with sword blood. And so much the less did I rule o'er dear doughty ones, whom death had taken. Now sit down to the banquet, and unbind thy thoughts, thy hopes to the thanes, as thy mind inspires thee. Then was there room made in the beer hall for the Geats all together. And there they went, and sat down, the strong-hearted men, proud of their strengths, and a thane waited on them, who bore in his hands the ale cup bedecked, and he poured out the sparkling mead, while the clear-voiced bard kept singing in heart. And there was joy to the heroes, and a very great gathering of Danes and of Geats. And spake then Unferth, the son of Egloff, who sat at the feet of the lord of the Danes, and opened a quarrel. For the journey of Beowulf, of the brave seafarer, was vexation to him, for he could not brook that ever any other man than he himself should obtain greater fame in all the earth. What, said he, art thou that Beowulf who didst contend with Brecar, and strovest for the mastery in swimming o'er wide seas, when ye two for pride were searching the waves, and for foolish boasting risked her lives in the deep waters? No man could dissuade you from that sorrowful journey. Two swam in the sea, when you two enfolded the waves with your arms, and measured the sea ways and brandished your arms as you glided over the ocean. The sea boiled with waves, the wintry whelming. And for 7 nights long, you were toiling in the stress of seas. But he o'erpowered thee in swimming, for greater strength had he. Then at the morning, tide the sea bore him up to the land of the Hethormes. Thence he was seeking the friend of his people, his own dear country, the land of the Brondens, the fair city of refuge, where he had his own folk and a city and rings. The son of Beanstan, soothly fulfilled his boasting against thee. So do I deem it a worse matter, though thou art everywhere doughty in the rush of battle and grim warfare, if thou shalt be daring to bide near Grendel a night-long space. Then Beowulf spake, my friend Unferth, drunken with beer, many things thou art saying about that Brecar, and talkest of his journey. But soothly, I tell thee that I have the greater strength in that swimming and endurance in the waves. We too agreed when we were youngsters, and boasted, for we were both still in the days of our youth, that we in the ocean would be risking our lives. And so, indeed, we did. We had a naked sword hard in our hands when we were swimming. We too were thinking to guard us gainst whale fishes. Nor over the sea waves might he be floating away, far from me, more quickly on the waters. Then we together were in the sea for the space of 5 nights, until the flood, the boiling waters drove us asunder, and the coldest of weather, and the darkening night, and a wind from the north battle grim turned against us, and rough were the waves. And the mind of the mere fishes was stirred, when my shirt of mail, though was hand-locked, gave to me help against the foe. The decorated battle robe lay on my breast, all adorned with gold, and the dew-mad and dire foe drew to the bottom, and fast he had me grin in his grit. Still to me was granted that I reached to the monster with the point of my sword. And the mighty sea deer carried off the battle, rushed through my hand. So then evildoers did often oppress me, and I served them with my dear sword, as was most fitting. Not in all of the feasting had they any joy. Evil destroyers sat round the banquet at the bottom of the sea, that they might seize me. But in the morning, wounded by my sword, they lay up on the foreshore, put to sleep by my weapon, so that they hindered no more the faring of the seagoers. Light came from the eastward, the bright beacon of God. The waves grew less, but I could catch sight of the sea nesses, the windy walls. Weird often saved the earl that is undoomed when his courage is doughty. Nevertheless, it happened that I slew with my sword 9 of the sea monsters. Nor have I heard, under vault of heaven, of a harder night struggle, nor of a more wretched man on the sea streams. Still, I escaped from the grasp of the foes with my life and weary of the journey. When the sea bore me up on the flood tide, on the welling of waves, to the land of the Finns. Nor have I heard concerning thee of any such striving or terror of swords. Brecca never yet, nor either of you two, did such a deed with shining sword in any battle gaining. Not that I will boast of this too much. Yet wast thou the slayer of thy brother, thy chief kinsman. And for this in hell shalt thou suffer a curse, though thy wit be doughty. And soothly I tell thee, O son of Eglaf, that Grendel, that hateful monster, never had done such terrors to thy life, and humiliation in heart, if thy mind and thy soul were as battle fierce as thou thyself dost say. But he has found that he needed not to fear the terrible sword thrust of your people, the Danes. He taketh forced toll, and spareth none of the Danish people, but joyfully wageth war, putteth them to sleep, and feedeth on them, and expecteth no fight from the Danes. But I shall ere long offer him in war the strength and the courage of the Geats. Let him go who can to the mead all proudly, when morning light shall shine from the south, another day over the children of men. Then in the hall, the giver of rings was gray-haired and battle-brave. The prince of the Danes was hopeful of help. The guardian of the folk fixed on Beowulf his firm purposed thought. There was laughter 'mong heroes, Dine resounded, and words were winsome. Wealhtheow went forth, the queen of Hrothgar, mindful of kinship, and decked out in gold. She greeted Beowulf in the hall. And then the lovely wife first proffered the goblet to the lord of the East Danes, and bade him be blithe at the beer drinking, he who was dear to all his people. And gladly he took the banquet and the hall cup, he that victorious king. The lady of the helmings went round about every one of the youthful warriors, and proffered the costly cup, until the time came that the ring-adorned queen, most excellent in spirit, bore the mead cup then to Beowulf. She, the wise in words, greeted the Geats, and gave thanks to God that she had her desire, that she might trust in any earl for help that gives such cries. He gladly received it, he the battle-fierce warrior, from the hand of Wealhtheow, and then began singing, inspired by a warlike spirit. Beowulf spake the son of Ecgtheow. I have intended at once to work out the will of this your people, when I set forth over the sea, and sat in my sea-boat with the troop of my people, or that I would fall in the slaughter fast in the fiend's grip. I shall yet acquit myself as befitted an earl, or in the mead hall await my last day. And well the lady liked the words, the boasting of the gate, and that lovely queen went all decked out in gold to sit by her lord. Then mighty words were spoken in the hall as before, by the people in joyance and the noise of the victors, until the son of Healfdene straightway would be seeking his evening rest. And he knew that a battle was doomed in the high hall to the monster, when no longer they could see the light of the sun, where darkening night came stalking over all the shapes of shadows. The troop of warriors rose up. The lord greeted the other. Hrothgar greeted Beowulf, and wished him good health in the warding of that one hall. since the time that I could lift my hand or my shield. Never have now and hold thou this best of houses. Be thou mindful of honor, and show thyself courageous and wakeful against foes. Nor shalt thou lack joy if thou escapest from that brave work with life. The two troops of heroes that they would be seeking out the prince. The glory of kings had appointed a hall ward, as men say, against Grendel. A thane was in waiting on the prince of the Danes, and his watch was keeping against the giant. The lord of the Geats readily trusted the proud strength, the favor of God. And doffed he the iron coat of mail and his helmet from his head, and gave his sword bedecked, the choicest of weapons, to a thane that was serving, and bade him to hold ready his armor. Then the good man spoke some words of boasting. I reck not myself meaner in war powers and works of battle than Grendel doth himself. For I will not, with sword, put him to sleep, and be taking his life away. Though, well, I might do it. None of them thought that he thence would ever seek another dear home, folk or free city, where he was a child. For they had heard that fell death had taken, ere this too many, in that wine hall of the people of the Danes. But the Lord gave weavings of war speed to the people of the gates, both comfort and help. Because they believe, as I met a mystery, that they all overcame their enemies through the craft of one man, and by his might only. And truly, it is said that God Almighty doth wield forever the race of men. Then came in the wan night, the shadow gullah gliding. Warriors were sleeping when they should have been keeping guard over that palace. All save one only. It was well known to men that their constant foe could not draw them into shadowy places, when the Creator was unwilling. But he, ever wakeful, in angry mood, and fiercely indignant against the foe, was waiting the issue. Then came Grendel, stalking from the moors among the misty hill slopes, and he bore God's anger. And the wicked scather of humankind fully intended to ensnare a certain one in the high hall. So he wended his way under the welkin to where he knew that the best of wine halls, the gold hall of man, was adorned with gold prating. Nor was that the first time that he sought out the home of Hrothgar. Nor ever, in former or later days, did he find a harder welcome from hall things. Then the creature bereft of all joy came to the great hall, and the door, strongly bound with fire bands, soon sprang open at his touch. And the evil-minded one, in his fury, burst open the door of the palace. And soon after this, the enemy, angry in mind, was treading over the doomed floor. And a fearsome light streamed forth from his eyes, likest to a flame. And ye could see many a warrior in that palace, a troop of peace lovers asleep together, a company of kinsmen, and he laughed aloud. Then the terrible monster fully intended to cut off from life every one of them there, when he was expecting abundance of meat. But that fate was not yet, that he should lay hold of any more of humankind after that night. Then did Beowulf, kinsman of Hygelac, see the dire distress, how the wicked scather would fare with sudden grip. Nor did the monster think to delay, but at the first he quickly laid hold of the sleeping warrior, and tore him to pieces all unawares, and bit at the flesh, and drank the streaming blood, and devoured huge pieces of flesh. And soon he had eaten up both feet and hands of the man he had killed. Then he stepped up to the great-hearted warrior, where he lay on the bed, and took him in his hands. He reached out his hand against the enemy, and quickly received him, with hostile intent, and sat upon his arm. The keeper of crimes soon was finding that he never had met in all the quarters of the earth, amongst other men, a greater hand grip. And in mind and heart he was fearful, and eager to be gone, and to flee away into darkness to seek the troop of devils. But that was not his fate, as it had been in days of yore. Then the good kinsman of Hygelac remembered the evening talk, and stood upright and laid hold upon him. His fingers burst. The giant was going forth, but the earl stepped after. The famous one, intended to escape more widely, howsoever he might, and to flee on his way thence, to the sloping hollows of the fens. That journey was sorrowful, which the harmful scather took to heart. The lordly hall resounded, and great terror there was. To all the Danes, the castle dwellers, to each of the brave. And both the mighty guardians were fiercely angry. The hall resounded. Then was it great wonder that the wine hall withstood the bold fighters, and that it fell not to the earth, that fair earth dwelling, but very firm it was standing, cunningly shaped by craft of the smith, within and without. Then on the floor was many a mead bench, as I have heard tell, decked out with gold, where the fierce ones were striving. Nor did the wise dames formerly suppose that any man could break down a hall so noble and decorated with antlers, or cunningly destroy it, unless the bosom of flame swallowed it up in smoke. The roaring went up now enough, and an awful terror came to the North Danes, to each one of those who heard weeping from the ramparts. The enemy of God singing a fierce song, a song that was empty of victory, and the captive of hell lamenting his sorrow. For he that was strongest of men in strength held him fast on the day of his life. The Prince of Earls would not at all let go alive the murderous comer, nor did he count his life as of use to any of the peoples. And many an Earl of Beowulf brandished the old heirloom, and were wishful to defend the life of their far-famed liege lord, if they might do so. And they knew not, when they entered the battle, they were the hard-thinking ones, the battle-men. And they fought to hew on all sides, seeking out his spirit, that not any choice iron over the earth, nor any battle weapon, could be greeting the foe. And miserable should be his passing on the day of his life. And the hostile sprite should journey far into the power of devils. Then he found out that he who did crimes long before this with mirthful mind to humankind, he who was a foe to God, that his body would not last out, that the proud kinsman of Hygelac had him in his hands, and each was loathsome to the other while he lived. The terrible monster, sore with wounds, was waiting. The gaping wound was seen on his shoulder. His sinews sprang open, and the bone lockeries burst. And great victory was given to Beowulf. Thence would Grendel, mortally wounded, flee under the fen slopes to seek out a joyless dwelling. The more surely he knew he had reached the end of his life, the number of the days. Joy befell all the Danes after the slaughter rush. So he had cleansed the hall of Hrothgar, he who had come from far, the proud and stout-hearted one, and saved them from strife. He rejoiced in the night work and in the glorious deeds. His boast he had fulfilled, this leader of the Geats, which he made to the East Danes, and likewise made good all the distresses and the sorrows which they suffered of yore from the foe, and which through dire need they had to endure, of distresses not a few. And when the battle-brave man laid down the hand, the arm and shoulder under the wide roof, that is the manifest token. Then in the morning, as I have heard say, was many a battle warrior round about the gift hall. Came the folk leaders from far and from near along the wide ways to look at the marvel. There was the sea boiling with blood, the awful surge of waves, all mingled with hot gore. The death, doomed one died the lake, when void of joys, he laid down his life in the fen for refuge. And hell received him. Thence after departed the old companions. Likewise, many a young one from the joyous journeys, proud from the lake to ride on mares, the youths on their horses. And there was the glory, or Beowulf, proclaimed. And many of one was saying that no man was a better man. No man in the whole wide world under arch of the sky. Of all the shield bearers, neither south nor north by the seas. More wit did they blame in the least their friend and moored, the glad Hrothgar, for he was a good king. And a man began wisely to sing the journey of Beowulf, and to tell skillful tales with speeding that was good, and to interchange words. They had laid low very many of the giants' race by means of the sword. And after his death day, a no little fame sprang up for Sigmund, when he, the hard in battle, killed the worm, the guardian of the horde. He alone, the child of the Atheling, hazarded a fearful deed under the grey stone. More was Phytala with him. Still, it happened to him that his sword pierced through the wondrous worm, and it stood in the wall, that doughty iron, and the dragon was dead. And so this monster had gained strength in that, going so that he might enjoy the hoard of wings by his own doom. He loaded the sea boat and bore the bright treasures onto the ship's bosom. He, the son of Wales, the worm melted hot. He was of wanderers, the most widely famous in deeds of courage amongst men, the protector of warriors. He formerly throve and the warfare of Heremod was waning, his strength and his courage. He was betrayed among the giants into the hands of the foes and sent quickly away. And too long did whelming sorrow vex his soul. But Beowulf Heiklak's kinsman was fairer to all men, but crime assailed Heremod. Sometimes they passed along the fouler streets contending on mares. Then came the light of morning and hastened forth. And many a stiff-minded messenger went to the high hall to see the rare wonder. Likewise, the king himself, the ward of the hoard of rings, came treading all glorious and with a great suite, forth from the bridal bower, and choice was his bearing, and his queen with him passed along the way to the mead hall. Hrothgar spake, he went to the hall, and stood on the threshold, and saw the steep roof, all decked out with gold and the hand of Grendel. Let thanks be given quickly to God for this sight, said he. Often I waited for the loathsome one, for the snares of Grendel. May God always work wonder after wonder, he the guardian of glory. It was not long ago that I expected not a bettering of any woes forever. When doomed to blood, this best of all houses stood all stained with gore. Now has this hero done a deed through the power of the Lord, which none of us formerly could ever perform with all our wisdom. Lo, any woman who gave birth to such a son among humankind may say, if she yet live, that the Creator was gracious unto her in bearing of children. Now, O Beowulf, I will love thee in heart as my son. Hold well to this new peace, nor shall there be any lack of joys to thee in the world, over which I have power. Full oft I for less have meted out rewards and worshipful gifts to a meaner warrior, one weaker in strife. Thou hast framed for thyself mighty deeds, so that thy doom liveth always and forever. Maybe all will there ever yield be good as he now doth. Beowulf spake, the son of Ectheo. We framed to fight that brave work with much favor, and hazarded a deed of daring in the might of the unknown. I quickly gave you to see the monster himself, the enemy, in his fretted armor, ready to fall. I thought to twist him quickly with hard grip on a bed of slaughter, so that he should lie in the throes of death, because of my hand grip, unless he should escape with his body. But I could not cut off his going when the Creator willed it not. I cleft him not readily, that deadly fiend. He was too strong on his feet. Nevertheless, he left behind his hand as a life protection to show the track, his arm, and his shoulders. But not by any means thus did that wretched creature get any help, nor by that did the evildoer, brought low by sin, live any longer. That sorrow hath him in its fatal grip, closely encompassed with baleful bands. There shall a man covered with sins be biding a mickle doom, as the shining Creator will prescribe. The man silent, the son of Edloth, in the fingers of the foe, there before each one. And each of the places of the nails was likest to steel, the claw of the heathen, the uncanny claw of the battle warrior. Every one was saying it was never necessary to get no very good iron of any of the brave ones, would touch him at all, that would bear away thence the bloody battle hand of the monster. Then was it bidden that heart should be decked by their hands on the inside. And many there were of the men and wives who adorned that wine hall, the guest chamber. And the tapestry shone along the walls, brocaded with gold. Many a wonderful sight for every man who stareth upon them. and that bright dwelling was greatly marred, though within it was fast bound with iron, yet the door hinges had sprung apart. The roof alone escaped all safe and sound, when the monster turned to flight despairing of life and deigned for his crimes. Nor will it be easy to escape from that fate, whosoever may try to, that he shall get by strife the ready place of the children of men, of the soul bearers, who toil upon earth, because he died. Then was the time for Healfden's son to go into the hall, when the king himself would partake of the banquet. Nor have I ever heard tell that any people in greater numbers bore themselves better about their treasure giver. And the wealthy ones sat down on the bench and rejoiced in their feeding. And full courteously their kinsmen took many a mead cup. They, the stout-hearted Hrothgar and Horthulf in the high hall. And within was heart filled with friends. And by no means were the Danes, the while framing treacheries. Then the son of Healfdene gave to Beowulf the golden banner, the decorated staff banner, as a reward for his conquest, and the helm and the byrnie. And many a one saw the youth bear in front of the bejeweled sword. Beowulf took the cup in the hall. Nor did he need to be ashamed of the fee gift in the presence of warriors. Nor have I heard tell of many men giving to others on any ale bench for gifts gold decked in friendlier fashion. The outside rim wound with wires gave protection to the head on the outer side, around the crown of the helmet. So that many an heirloom could not hurt fiercely the helmet that was hardened by being plunged in cold water when the shield warrior should attack the angry one. The protector of earls commanded 8 horses to be brought in under the barriers, with bridles gold-plated. And a varicolored saddle was fixed upon one of them, decked out with treasures. And this was the battle seat of the High King, when the son of Healfden had be doing the swordplay. Never in the van did it fail the warrior, so widely kenned, when the helmets were falling. Then the prince of the Danes gave to Beowulf the wielding of them both, of horses and weapons, and bade him well enjoy them. And thus in manly fashion, the famous chieftain, the treasure guardian of heroes, rewarded the battle onslaught with horses and treasures so as no man can blame them, whoever will be saying rightly the truth. The Creator ruleth all of humankind, as still he is doing. And good understanding is always the best thing, and forethought of mind. And he who long enjoys here the world in these strife days shall be biding both pleasant and loathsome fate. Then was there clamor and singing together in the presence of the battle prince of Healfdene, and the harpal sounded and the song often sung. When Rotgar's stop would tell forth the hall mirth as he sat on the mead bench. When fear was befalling the heirs of Finn, the hero of the half-Danes, a naif of the Danes must fall in the slaughter of the Frisian people. Not in the least did Hildeborn need to be praising the troth of the Utes. Rot, for sinlessly was she deprived of her dear ones in the play of swords of children and brothers. By fate they fell, wounded by arrows, and she was a sad woman. Nor without reason did the daughter of Huck mourn their doom. When morning light came, and she could see under the sky the murder of her kinsman, where she before in the world had the greatest of joy. For warfare took away all the thanes of Finn, except a mere remnant, so that he could not in the place where they met fight any warfare at all, with Hengist nor seize from the prince's Dane the woeful leavings by fighting. Then they swore, on both sides, a treaty of peace. Finn swore with Hengist, and all without strife, that he held in honor the woeful remnant by the doom of the wise men, and that no man there by word or work should break the treaty, or ever annul. But if any one of the Frisians, by daring speech, should bring to mind the murderous hate between them, then should the edge of the sword avenge it. Then sworn was that oath, and massive gold was lifted up from the hoard. Then was Nace, the best of the warriors, of the bold Danes, ready on the funeral pyre. And the blood-stained shirt of mail was easily seen. The golden boar in the midst of the flame, the iron hard boar, and many an atheling destroyed by wounds. Some fell on the field of death. Then Hildeburh commanded her very own son to be thrust in the flames of the pyre of Nafe, his body to be burned and be put in the fire. And great was the moaning of the mother for her son, and dirge like lamenting as the warrior ascended. And the greatest of slaughter fires wound its way upwards towards the welkin and roared before the cavern. Heads were melting, wounds burst asunder. Then blood sprang forth from the wounds of the body. Flame swallowed all, that most cruel of ghosts, of both of those folk whom battle destroyed. Their life was shaken out. Then the warriors went forth to visit the dwellings which were bereft of friends, and to look upon the land of the Frisians, the homesteads, and the high town. In Hengist was still dwelling with Finn, that slaughter-stained winter, all bravely without strife. And he thought on the homeland, because he could not be sailing his ringed ship over the waters. The sea boiled with storm and waged war with the wind, and winter locked up the ice-bound waves till yet another year came in the court, as still it doth, which ever guards the seasons, and the glory bright weather. Then winter was scattered, and fair was the bosom of the earth, and the wanderer strove to go, the guest, from the court, and much more he thought of vengeance for the feud than of the sea voyage, as to how he could bring about an angry encounter, for he bore in mind the children of the Jutes. And so he escaped not the lot of mortals when Hunlafine did on his on the best of swords, the flashing light of the battle, whose edge was well known to the Jutes. And dire sword bill after befell the fierce-minded Finn, even in his very own home, when Guflof and Oslof lamented the grim grip of war and the sorrow after sea journeys, and were charging him with his share in the... Nor could he hold back in his own breast his fluttering soul. Then again was the hall adorned with the bodies of fame, and Finn was also slain, the king with his troop, and the queen was taken. And the warriors of the Danes carried to the ships all the belongings of the Earth King, such as they could find in the homestead of Fame, of ornaments and jewels. They bore away also the noble wife Hildebor, down to the sea away to the Danes, and led her to her people. So a song was sung a lay of the Bleeman, and much mirth there was, and great noise from the benches. And cupbearers offered wine from wondrous vessels. Then came forth Queen Wealhtheow in her golden circlet, where the two good men were sitting, the uncle and his nephew, and still were they in peace together, and each true to the other. Likewise, Unferth the spokesman sat there, at the foot of the Lord of the Danes, and each of them trusted Unferth's good heart, and that he had a great soul, though he was not loyal to his kinsman at the sword play. Then spake the Queen of the Danes, "Take this cup, O my liege lord, thou giver of rings. Be thou right joyful, thou gold friend to men. Do thou speak mild words to the Geats, as a man should be doing. Be glad of thy gets, and mindful of gifts. Now thou hast peace both near and far. There is one who told me that thou wouldst have the battle hero for thy son. Now heart is all cleansed. The bright hall of rings. Enjoy whilst thou mayest many rewards, and leave to thy kinsmen, both folk and a kingdom, when thou shalt go forth to work on eternity. I know my glad Hertholf will hold in honor this youth, if thou, old Hrothgar, the friend of the Danes, dost to leave the world earlier than he. I ween that he will yield good to our children if he remembers all that has passed, how we were too truth-worshipfully showed kindness to him, and what I remembered to see, to call with God. There sat the good man, Beowulf, of the Geats, by the two brothers. And the cup was borne to them, and a friendly invitation given to them in words, and twisted gold was graciously proffered him. 2 arm ornaments, armor, and rings, and the greatest of neck rings of which I heard tell anywhere on earth. Ne'er heard I of better hoard jewels of heroes under the sky, since Hama carried away the Brosinga men to the bright city, ornaments and treasure vessel. It was he who fled from the cunning plots of Ermanric, and chose eternal gain. Hygelac of the Geats next had the ring, he who was the grandson of Swording. When under the standard, he protected the treasure and defended the plunder. And Weird carried him off when he, because of Prague, suffered woes, the feud with the Frisians. Then carried him the jewels, the precious stones, over the sea. He who was the ruling prince, and he fell under shield. And the life of the king and the coat of mail and ring together came into possession of the Franks. And worse, warriors plundered the slaughter after the war. And the corpses of the Geat held the field of death. The hall resounded with noise when Loki spake these words in the midst of the court. Enjoy this ring, dearest Beowulf, and use this coat of mail, these national treasures, and good luck befall thee. Declare thyself a good craftsman, and be to these boys gentle in teaching, and I will be mindful of thy guerdon, for that thou hast so acted that men will esteem thee far and near for ever and ever, even as widely as the sea doth encompass the windy earth walls. Be a noble atheling, as long as thou livest. I give thee many treasures. Be thou kindly indeed to my sons, joyful as thou art. For here is each earl true to his fellow, and mild of mood, and faithful to his liege lord. Thanes are gentle, the people all ready. O ye warriors who have drunk deep, do as I tell you. She went to the seat where was a choice banquet, and the men drank wine. They knew, not weird, the fate that was grim as it had befallen many an earl. Then evening came on, and Hrothgar betook him to his own quarters, the prince to his resting place, and a great number of earls kept guard over the palace as often they had done in former days. They laid bare the bench-board and spread it over with beds and bolsters. And one of the beer servants, eager and fated, went to his bed on the floor. And they set at his head war shields that were bright. And over the atheling there on the bench was easily seen the towering helmet and the ring byrnie, the glorious spear. It was their wont to be ready for war, both at home and in battle, at whatever time their lord had need of them. The season was propitious. Then they sank down to sleep. And sorely some of them paid for their evening repose, as full often it had happened to them since Grendel came to the Gold Hall and did evil, until an end was made of him. Death after sins. It was easily seen and widely known to men that an avenger survived a loathsome one, for a long time after the war sorrow. A woman, the mother of Grendel, a terrible wife, bore in mind her woes, she who was fated to dwell in the awful wake in the cold streams, since Cain became a sword slayer to his only brother, his father's son. He then went forth, marked for the murder, and fled from human joys, and dwelt in the waste. And thence he awoke many a fatal demon, and Grendel was one of them, the hateful fierce wolf, who found the man wide awake awaiting the battle. And there was the monster at grips with him, yet he remembered the main strength, the wide and ample gift which God gave to him, and trusted in the favor of the Almighty for himself, for comfort and help by which he vanquished the enemy and overcame the hell sprite. Then he departed abject, bereft of joy, to visit the death place, the enemy of mankind. But his mother, greedy and sad in mind, would be making a sorrowful journey, that she might avenge the death of her son. She came then to Hart, where the ring dames were asleep, in that great hall. Then soon there came misfortune to the girls when the mother of Grendel entered the chamber. Yet less was the terror, even by so much as the craft of maidens. The war terror of a wife is less than that of men beweaponed. When the sword hard bound and forged by the hammer and stained with blood, cuts the bore in the helmet of the foe with a Then in the hall, the hard edge was drawn, the sword over the seats, and many a broad shield heaved up fast by the hand. And no one heeded the helmet, nor the broad shield when terror seized upon them. She was in great haste, she would go avenge her life to be saving when she was discovered. Quickly she had seized one of the athelings fast in her grip when she forth was fleeing away to the fen land. He was to Hrothgar, the dearest of heroes, in the number of his comrades by the two seas, a powerful shield warrior, and she killed as he slumbered, a youth of renown. Beowulf was not there. To another, the place was assigned after the treasured gift had been bestowed on the famous Geta. Then a great tumult was made in heart, and with bloodshed she had seized the well-known hand of Grendel her son. And care was renewed in all the dwellings. Nor was that a good exchange that they on both sides should be buying with the lives of their friends. Then was the wise king, the hoar battle warrior, rough in his mood when he came to know that the dearest of his chief thanes was dead and bereft of life. And Beowulf quickly was fetched into the bower, he, the man, all victorious. And at the dawning went one of the earls, a noble champion, he and his comrades, where the proud man was waiting to see whether the all-wielder will ever be causing a change after woe spells. And the battle-worthy man went along the floor with his band of followers. The hall-wood was resounding, so that he greeted the wise man with words, the lord of the Danes, and asked him if he had had a quiet night, in spite of the press. When the word that the Ignore of Hrothgar after a plain about Hoven too, a driver who, Aesir is dead, the elder brother of Yermenlaf. He was my counselor and my rune-teller, my shoulder companion when we in the battle protected our heads, when troops were clashing and helmets were crashing. He was what an earl ought to be, a very good athelin. Such a man was Aesir, and the wandering slaughter guest was his handslayer in heart. I know not whither that dire woman exulting in carrion, and by her feeding made famous, went on her journeys. She was wreaking vengeance for the feud of thy making when thou killedst Grendel but yesternight in a violent way, with hard grips, because all too long he was lessening and destroying my people. He fell in the struggle, gave his life as a forfeit. And now comes another, a mighty man Skader, to avenge her son. And the feud hath renewed, as may seem a heavy heart woe to many a thane who weeps in his mind over the treasure giver. Now lieth, lo the hand, which availed you well, for every kind of pleasure. I heard land dwellers and hall counselors and my people say that they saw two such monstrous march steppers, alien sprites, holding the moorland. And one of them was in the likeness of a woman, as far as they could tell. The other, shapen wretchedly, trod the path of exiles in the form of a man, except that he was greater than any other man, he whom in former days the earth-dwellers called by name Grendel. They knew not his father, whether any secret sprite was formerly born of him. They kept guard over the hidden land, and the wolf slopes the windy messes. the terrible fen path where the mountain streams rush down under mists of the messes, the floods under the earth. And it is not farther hence than the space of a mile where standeth the lake, over which are hanging the frosted trees, their wood fast by the roots and shadowing the water. And there, every night, one may see dread wonders, fire on the flood, and there liveth not a wise man of the children of men who knoweth well the ground. Nevertheless, the heath stepper, the strong-horned hart, when pressed by the hounds, seeketh that woodland. When put to flight from afar, ere on the hillside, hiding his head, he gives up his life. Nor is that a canny place. For thence the surge of waters riseth up, one to the welkin, then stirred by the winds, the loathsome weather, until the heaven darkens and skies weep. Now is good counsel depending on thee alone. Thou knowest not the land, the terrible places where thou couldst find the sinful man. Seek it, if thou darest. Some I will reward thee for the feud with old world treasures, so I did before, with twisted gold, if thou comest thence on thy way. Beowulf spake, the son of Ecgtheow, sorrow not, O wise man. It is better for each one to avenge his friend when he is much mourning. Each one of us must wait for the end of his world life. Let him work who may, ere the doom of death come. That is afterwards best for the noble dead. Arise, O ward of the kingdom. Let us go forth quickly to trace out the going of Grendel's kinswoman. I bid thee do it. For neither in the bosom of the earth, nor in forests of the mountains, nor by the ways of the sea, go where she will, shall she escape into safety. Do thou this day be patient in every kind of trouble, as I also hope to be. The old man leapt up and gave thanks to God, the mighty Lord, for the words of Beowulf. Then was bridled a horse for Hrothgar, a steed with twisted hair, and as a wise prince he went forth in splendid array. The troop of shield warriors marched along, and the traces were widely seen in the forest ways, the goings of Grendel's mother over the ground. Forwards she had gone over the murking moorlands, and had borne in her grasp, bereft of his soul, the best of the thanes, who were wont to keep watch over Hrothgar's homestead. Then Beowulf, the Athling's child, stepped over the steep and stony slopes, and the narrow pathways, and the straight and single tracks, an unknown way, by the steep messes, and by many. And one of the wise men went on before to seek out the path, until all at once he found some mountain trees overhanging the gray stones, a forest, all joyless. And underneath was a water all blood-stained and troubled. And a grievous thing it was for all the Danes to endure, for the friends of the Scyldings, and for many a thane, and distressful to all the earls, when they came upon the head of Ayrshire on the cliffs above the sea. The flood boiled with blood, and with hot gore the folk looked upon her. And at times the horn sounded a battle song ready prepared. All the troop sat down. And many kinds of serpents they saw in the water, and wonderful dragons searching the sea, and on the cliff slopes monsters of the ocean were lying at full length, who at the morning tide often make a woeful journey on the sail path. And these living things fell down on the path, all bitter and angry when they perceived the noise and the blast of the war horn. And the prince of the Geats killed one of them with his bow and arrows, and envied his wave strife, and he was in the sea, slower at swimming as death swept him away. And on the waves, by fierce battle hard pressed, and with boars' spears savagely barbed, the wondrous sea monster was assailed in the struggle and drawn up on the headland. And men were looking at the awful stranger. Christ-emular. They believed water. And by no means was that the least of aids in battle, but the spokesman of Hrothgar lent him at need, even the hilted sword, which was called Horenton. And it was one of the ancient treasures. Its edge was of iron, and poison-tipped, and hardened in battle sweat. And never did it fail in the fight any man who brandished it in his hands, or who dared to go on fearful journeys to the field of battle. And that was not the first time that it was to do deeds of courage, because and Unferth did not think, he the kinsman of Ecglaf, crafty of strength, of what he formerly had said when drunken with wine, he had lent that weapon to a braver sword warrior. He himself durst not risk his life in the stress of the waters, and do a glorious deed. And thereby he lost his doom of famous deeds. But thus was it not with that other, for he had got himself ready for the battle. Be thou a guardian to my kinsmen, my thanes, and my hand comrades, if battle should take me. And dear Hrothgar, send now the gifts which thou didst give me to Hygelac. And the lord of the Geats, the son of Raphel, when he looks on the treasure and perceives the gold, will see that I found a giver of rings, one good and open-handed, and that while I could, I enjoyed the treasures. And do thou let Unferth, a man who is far famed, have the old heirloom, the curiously wrought sword with its wave-like device, with its hard edge. I work out my fate with renting, or death shall seize me. After these words, the lord of the Wheater Gates courageously hastened, and by no means would he wait for an answer. The whelming sea received the battle hero, and it was a day's while before he could see the bottom of the sea. And very soon the fierce and eager one who would rule the expanse of the floods for 100 years. She, the grim and greedy, saw that a man was searching out from above the dwelling of strange monsters. Then she made a grab at him and closed on the warrior with dire embrace. But not at first did she scathe his body, safe and sound. The ring surrounded it on the outside, so that she could not pierce the coat of mail or the interlaced war shirt with loathsome finger. Then the sea wolf, when she came to the bottom of the sea, bore the ring prince towards her house, so that he might not. Many a sea beast broke his war shirt with his battle tusks, and monsters pursued him. Then the earl saw that he was in, he knew not what hall of strife where no water scathed him a whit, nor could the sudden grip of the flood touch him because of the roof hole. He saw, too, a firelight, a bright, pale flame shining. Then the good man caught sight of the she-wolf, that monstrous wife, down in the depths of the sea, and he made a mighty rush with his sword. Nor did his hand fail to swing it, so that the ringed mail on her head sang a greedy death song. Then Beowulf the stranger discovered that the battle blade would not bite or scathe her life, but the edge failed the Lord in his need. It had suffered many hand blows, and the helmet, the battle dress of the doomed one, it had often cut in two. That was the first time that his dear sword treasure failed him. Then he became resolute, and not by any means did he fail in courage, that kinsman of Hygelac, mindful of glory. And this angry warrior threw away the stout sword, bound round with jewels, with its wavy decorations and with its edge of steel, so that it lay prone on the ground, and henceforth he trusted in his strength and the hand grasp of might. So should a man be doing when he thinketh to be gaining long-lasting praise in fighting, and careth not for his life.